Hi, everyone. Welcome in to another daily editorial here on the KE Report. This is a special daily editorial as we are getting an update from Kodiak Copper, and we are recording this over video because there are a couple key maps and slides to present along with this update. Kodiak Copper is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol KDK and on the OTCQB under the symbol KDKCF. I am chatting with the president and CEO, Claudia Tornquist. Now, Kodiak Copper is focused at the MPD copper gold porphyry project in South Central British Columbia. Now, we are bringing Claudia on to update us all on the ongoing exploration program. The company did announce news on September 13th that provided an update on the current drill program, which is about 25,000 meters, where 20,000 meters around that level has already been completed. A lot of the drilling to date has been focused more on infill drilling around that recent discovery, that gate zone discovery. But the new focus for the company coming into the tail end of this year and into next year is going to be testing a lot of new targets on the system. So Claudia, can you take us through some of these new targets and the focus on more exploration once this infill program is done, please?
Yes, I'd be very pleased to. Thanks, Cory, for the introduction. I think you summed it up very well. So far, our drilling was at the gate zone and focused on making the gate zone bigger, where we had quite some success, and also testing near gate zone anomalies. There are still some results coming from that, but we have now just recently moved a drill to a new target, to the Dillard zone. And it's very important to understand the MPD project. Our interpretation has been from the start that it is a multi-center porphyry system. And we are now moving, after our first discovery at Gate, to test other historically drilled porphyry centers, interpreted porphyry centers that have already some shallow historic mineralization. And we will now do exactly the same, what we did at Gate, and test those deeper. On this map here, you see our property. It's a large property, 147 square kilometers. And in the northwestern corner, that's where we made the gate zone discovery. And Dillard, where we are drilling now, is about 2 kilometers away. So it's a separate intrusion, and it has a lot of historic drilling and near surface copper and gold mineralization. And we are now chasing there the higher grade source where that is associated with this low grade mineralization that we have already. And we will do the same at Man. We will do the same in the southern part, in the Axe area of our property. We have multiple targets that we will test this year and then also next year, where we have a similarly sized large drill program planned.
So Claudia, is there a priority in some of these targets here? Because I am seeing about 8 targets actually, that it sounds like you want to drill. What's the pecking order going to be, understanding that you are starting at Dillard already?
Well, Dillard, I am personally very excited about because it is a very large target. On this map, you see the surface anomaly associated. Here is Dillard and the gate zone as well. It is in total 2.7 kilometers in length, the surface anomaly, almost 3 times the size of Gate. So very exciting target, large target. And if you're successful in vectoring in on the high-grade mineralization, then that would be a new discovery, and certainly, particularly given the size of the anomaly, that would be very exciting and certainly has the potential to generate excitement also in the market.
Now, how are you going to go about testing these different targets? How many holes approximately? How deep are you going to have to drill? How widely spaced can you drill this if these are some large targets?
Our approach at Dillard and Man and these other historically drilled targets is very similar to what we did at Gate successfully. We will drill below the shallow historic drilling. This image shows a little bit what this is about. And you see this dotted orange line here, which is approximately the depth of the drilling in the past by previous operators. On the left at the gate zone, when we started, we only had a couple of holes above the dotted line. We drilled deeper and found obviously much higher grade mineralization. And we will do exactly the same at Dillard, where we have near surface shallow mineralization, and we will now drill deeper, typically down to 700-800 meters or so. And we will do the same at Man, we will do the same at Axe. And I think we have a very good shot at discovering more high-grade mineralization, just as we did at Gate.
Now, are all these targets, these newer targets, do they all have near-surface mineralization that you have already defined?
This near-surface mineralization, that's historically drilled. So that's mineralization previous operators drilled, and we have several targets, such as Dillard, Man, and down at Axe, that have historic drilling already. And having said that, we have also defined some new targets with our soil sampling work that look very exciting as well. Have big surface anomalies, copper and gold on surface, and those we will be testing as well. So long story short, we are not short of targets, and it should be a very exciting next couple of months going forward for our shareholders. And as I said, I believe we have a good chance to make one or several more discoveries on our property.
Now, can you take us back a slide or two and talk about some of these newer targets? What are some of their names? Can you give us any more information on how you have developed these targets?
Well, this map shows the surface anomalies in the northern part of our property. And you see here Gate and Dillard. And Dillard West, for example, is a target that came out of last year's soil sampling program, where we found a lot of copper and gold on surface. So big surface anomaly, just about the size of Gate. Man South is another one. And this entire area where I'm hovering now with my mouse, that is an area where we are doing soil sampling this year, because last year with some prospecting, we found down here, particularly in the blue area, some really interesting prospecting samples. So we will be now, or have completed already, a soil grid over this whole area, and probably get some more targets out of that as well.
Okay, so you are still developing targets, and we should note too, the Gate zone, this is still a very attractive zone, but it sounds like you're going on the narrative where there could be a number of different porphyry deposits on this target. Does that relate to any other assets in the area or any other copper assets that we would know about?
That's a good question. In British Columbia, there are several porphyries that have multiple porphyry centers, and Copper Mountain, the neighboring mine, which is very similar geologically to what we see here at MPD, is in fact a multicentric porphyry system. They have several porphyry centers, several pits, and it's very much a similar scenario what we are seeing here at MPD.
Okay. Now, in terms of the remaining 5,000 meters, any clarity on how many meters will be drilled next year in part of, let's call it another phase?
This year, as I said, we have around about 5,000 meters of drilling still left. So we will drill until late in the year. And then we have for next year a similar size program planned, 25,000 meters. So again, a large program, and that will be on multiple targets.
Okay, that's when you're really going after some of these new targets. What about cash in the bank? We've been talking a lot on our show about how important it is to have cash in the bank. Where does Kodiak Copper stand?
We are very fortunate in that we have financed this year in March, just before the market took a turn for the worse. So we are fully cashed up. We have 12 million in the treasury and are fully financed for all of this year's work and well into next year. So for another year or so, we don't have to worry about financing, which in this market is, of course, a very good place to be. So we can put our head down, generate lots of results for our shareholders, and then come out ahead once the market turns.
Okay, now just to summarize, as you progress through this drilling and when we do start to get some of the drill results, what would you consider a success? Obviously, the higher grade, the better, but what are you looking for in terms of results that would warrant follow-up and more focus at any of these new targets?
Look at Gate. We had a lot of intercepts. The best intercept we had was over 0.5 kilometers of 0.76% copper equivalent, and then more of similar length intercepts, which would have been in the 0.4s, 0.5% of copper. That defines the high grade center at Gate. And then we see, as is the case in most porphyries, or as is very typical for porphyries, a large lower grade envelope around that. And it would be for similar type grades and intercepts that we are looking at Dillard, Man, at these other porphyry targets as well. We have already at these targets near surface lower grade mineralization from the historic drilling. That's without having any high grade, obviously doesn't amount to much, but if we're able to vector in on the source of this lower grade mineralization on the high grade porphyry center in these targets, then all of a sudden that looks very different, and this lower grade mineralization then becomes a whole lot more interesting. So that's really what we're working on.
Okay. Claudia, thank you for putting together some of these maps and some of these slides to walk us through the new exploration that's going to be happening at Kodiak Copper. If anybody has any follow-up questions, you can email me directly. That is fleck@kereport.com. There's also a contact information there if you want to contact the company directly. I recommend doing both to follow up on any of your questions. We will continue to follow along as more news is released out of Kodiak Copper from the current drilling and as the company progresses with some of this new exploration drilling. Claudia, thank you again for your time. We'll follow up on the back of some more news. I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.